Hi, this is Denise Mathew, and today I'm going to make this copper lariat. Last time I made a copper necklace, I used just wire, and I thought I'd just try it again because it was fun to do and people liked it. As before, I've made all the chain. This is a swirl kind of chain that I've made. I'll show you how to make that. I've used several different gemstone briolettes, but you could use crystals or just plain beads. And for the focal, I used a rock crystal quartz nugget, but you could also use a charm or anything you really want, as long as it's got a little bit of weight to it so that it will hold the lariat down. The whole piece measures 22 inches, and the gemstone part is about 8 inches. It will take some time to make, but I think it's worth the effort. So let's get started. I'm working with a 20 gauge wire. You could go up to an 18 if you wanted to, but I wouldn't go much higher because it might be a little bit difficult to work with. I use between 2 and 2.5 inches of wire to make the 7mm lengths. You're just going to make a circle to start, but just keep in mind that you're going to need to put the same gauge wire that you're using through that link, and I'll show you how that works later. And then you're just slowly going to start to make that into a scroll. I like to use my pliers to continue on with the scroll, but you can use your fingers if you prefer, or whatever feels comfortable. You're going to continue making their scroll until you have about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of wire left over. When you've made it as big as you want, then you're going to angle the wire just like that. Then you're going to take your pliers and then do a 90-degree angle, and then just wrap the wire around your pliers so that you have a loop. And if you have a little too much wire, you can just trim it back, because you don't want the wire to overlap. And the more of these you make, the more accurate you will be with your wire measurements. You're just going to open that loop so you can attach it to the other chain, and it goes right through this circle. That's why I said you need to have enough space so that the gauge of wire can go through. Just close that loop, and then that would be one link in your chain. And you're going to continue to do the same thing. If you want to add a crystal, I'll show you how to do that right now. When you're adding a crystal to your scroll, you want to have a little bit extra wire, probably about 1/4 inch, more than you did for just a plain scroll. So you're just going to do it the same way. Just start with a little circle with the scroll, and just start to build on the scroll until you have probably about between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch left of wire. And as I've said before, you can always tape your pliers if you're worried about them marking your wire. And you're going to bend the wire just like you did before, and then add a crystal. I'm using a 4mm bicone crystal. And like before, you're going to do a 90-degree angle and make a loop around your pliers. And this time you want the loop to overlap because you're going to use that to wrap it in, so it will be a closed loop. Just slide that open loop into the last link you made, and then just close the loop. You can use a briolette or you could use a charm or whatever you want for your focal. What I'm going to use today is a rock crystal quartz faceted nugget. It's 20 millimeter by 15 millimeter. Keeping with the theme of scroll, I'm just going to start a scroll here and I'm going to put that as a scroll type head pin for the nugget bead. Working with about a half a foot of 24 gauge wire. You can make the scroll as big or as small as you like, and when you feel it's just the right size, then you can stop and then just thread on your bead. And all you need to do is push the scroll up against the bottom of the bead. Now you can just make a standard wrap loop on the top, or you could do a loop with a scroll like I'm going to do. If you're just making a wrap loop, then you're going to trim it close to where you were wrapping. Otherwise, you can leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches so you can use that as a top scroll. Then you're going to do exactly the same thing as you did for the other scroll. Once you're done with the scroll, you can push it flat against the bead and adjust it the way you want it. I'm working with a 24 gauge wire and I just made a loop and I'm just going to attach that right to the nugget bead that I just made. Then just close the loop and then you can slide on your briolette bead or whatever type of bead you're using. I'm using an 8 millimeter by 8 millimeter Sleeping Beauty turquoise bead. You're going to slightly angle your loop up. Then you're going to do a loop on the other side. But before you close that loop, you're going to add a 10 millimeter jump ring. Now you could use a bigger or smaller jump ring if you want. Ideally, a closed jump ring would work best because it'll make your lariat more sturdy. And when you're making your loop, just leave a little bit of space between your loop and the bead, and that will be where you can do your wraps. And like I said, just slide on your 10 millimeter jump ring, and then you're going to close that loop. And if you notice, I'm making my wraps exactly where I left that space between the bead and the loop. When you've wrapped as much as you can, you're just going to trim that back and tuck in any stray wires. You're going to do another open loop and you're going to attach it to the jump ring you just attached. And then just close it. Then you're going to add your next bead. Do exactly as you did before. The only thing you'll do differently is that you're going to place the bead so it's pointing opposite to the way you put the other bead on. Then you're going to make a loop, add your next jump ring, and then close the loop. Then you can trim it back and tuck in any stray wires and continue on the same way until you use up as many briolettes as you want to. I'm going to keep adding beads and I'll come back and put it all together when I'm done. I've added 7 10mm jump rings and also all the gemstone beads, so my dangle's about 8 inches. Now I'm just going to do one more wrapped loop and attach it to the last 10mm jump ring I used, and add one 4mm bicone. Then I'm just going to do a 90-degree angle and then another loop. Then I'm going to slide on the link of the chain I made, the crystal side one, and then just close that loop. So you're going to have 2 crystals together, and that will link your lariat dangle to your actual chain. The length of the chain that I attached was about 6 inches. Now I'm working on the other side of the lariat, and I have 6 more inches of chain, and I just did a scroll, and it's 3 inches because I need to have a bigger loop because I'm going to attach my circle. Now that I have my scroll attached to the other chain, I'm just going to add a 4mm bicone and then make an open loop like you did before, but you're going to have to make it a little bit bigger because you want to make sure that your circle can easily fit on it. I'm using a 20mm circle and just slide it right onto your loop, and then you're just going to close that loop. The one thing you want to keep in mind when you're picking your circle and your beads is that the beads easily pass through the circle. Otherwise your lariat won't work properly. Now that I have both sides of the lariat done, I'm just going to attach them with an S-shaped closure and a circle. And you can use any type of clasps you want. You can use a spring clasp or a lobster claw or even a toggle clasp. Next thing you're going to do is just measure how long you want to have your dangle, and then you're going to make sure that you have equal lengths of chain on both sides. And if you don't, you can add or subtract whatever you need to do. And if you don't really care if the lengths are equal, you can just leave it as it is. But I just like to do it because when I'm adding a clasp, I want to make sure that it's equal. To add your clasp, you're just going to do a closed loop on the last link of the chain that you made. And then just put another bicone crystal on. And then just make another open loop and then attach it to your clasp. And then just close your loop. Then you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Just add an open loop to the last link of the chain. And you're going to close it and then add your crystal. Then another open loop, and then you can add the other side of your clasp and close it. And that would be your completed lariat. This completes the tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming. Bye for now.